whole new story.
Dexter Original Sin.
Now that the first episode of Dexter Original Sin has finally premiered, we can witness how the most charming and beloved serial killer on television developed into one. The titular character is a familiar face because of the popular 2006 series, where we first saw Dexter Morgan as the charismatic forensic pathologist who specializes in blood spatter analysis for the Miami Metro Police Department by the day and leads a secret life of a vigilante serial killer who goes after murderers who run free from the justice system. In this video, we will break down the first episode, Original Sin, which is a prequel to the 2006 series, and we will also elaborate on how the two shows are actually connected. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Dexter Morgan and what is Original Sin all about? Before we delve into a breakdown of the episode, it is important to understand the nature of Dexter Morgan and what made him into who he is. He was only 3 years old when he had the harrowing experience of watching his mother being brutally murdered with a chainsaw. He was adopted by a Miami police officer named Harry Morgan, and the man immediately understood the impact of the severe trauma on the boy. Dexter grew up to develop certain sociopathic tendencies which did not go unnoticed by his father, and in order to combat his condition, Harry trained him in a way so that he can channelize his uncontrollable bloodlust into some kind of vigilantism. He went on to kill the dreaded and notorious criminals who slipped through the justice system due to corruption or lack of evidence. Dexter also started working with the police department as a forensic analyst specializing in blood spatter pattern analysis. This helped him cover up his trail of homicides even better, and he turned into an extremely careful and circumspect serial killer who kills for the right of the society. From wearing gloves to using plastic-wrapped kill rooms for the hit jobs and then disposing the bodies into the Atlantic Ocean's Gulf Stream to avoid detection, it was a complete and foolproof process that he followed. Dexter himself was well aware of his two personalities, and he accepted the need for both to work in cohesion. This difficult life also makes it challenging for him to feel normal emotions, and while he appears as a socially responsible person in front of everyone, it is a constant struggle for him to embrace the normalcy that he seeks. So, that is Dexter for you, the protagonist whose antics we saw all too well in the TV series back in 2006. Michael C. Hall owned the role and won several Emmy nominations for his performance in the titular role, Dexter. Original Sin is a prequel series to Dexter, 2006, and it is set to explore more of Dexter's backstory and the details that have been skipped in the earlier series. Patrick Gibson slips into the shoes of Michael C. Hall as the younger version of Dexter, and we have already gotten glimpses of how he has nailed every nuance of the character. The first episode elaborates more on Dexter's life before joining the police department as an intern, and some are even seeing this series as the means to set up Michael C. Hall's return in the sequel series Resurrection, which we will explore later in the video. How does the first episode of Original Sin mark the return of our beloved serial killer? Now that you have a fair idea about the whole deal with Dexter Morgan, let us step into the first episode of Original Sin, which takes you back in time. The prequel series has already introduced some of the characters that we know and love, and they are just younger than what we are used to. Dexter is just graduating from medical school, and on the other hand, he is struggling to contain his sociopathic tendencies and trauma responses. The episode also brings in his adoptive father Harry, the cop who took him in following the death of his mother. He is genuinely caring and concerned about Dexter, and his intentions are simply to ensure that Dexter has a better life as an adult than he did as a child. We also see Dexter's foul-mouthed sister Deborah, who is a high schooler. Even the younger versions of familiar characters like Vince Masuka and Angel Batista from the Miami Metro Police Department are a welcome sight. If you are aware of the eventful finale of Dexter New Blood in 2022, you would know that Dexter was shot and seemingly killed by his son Harrison, and many of us wondered if it really meant the end for Dexter. Original Sin opens with the familiar grown-up version of Dexter, and we see Michael C. Hall playing the role he does best. He is being treated for his wounds, and he seems to be barely hanging in there. And we get a nice opportunity to start an intriguing flashback. a journey that goes back to the 90s. Gibson is then introduced as the younger Dexter, and he is finishing medical school. Some of his unusual personality traits haven't gone unnoticed by the fellow students, who have branded him as an emotionless freak. Michael C. Hall is doing all the narration, and we finally get a good look at the dysfunctional Morgan home. The overworked and worried father with his adopted psychopath son makes for a killer combo, quite literally. Harry, however, is doing all that he can to make sure that Dexter doesn't give in to his bloodlust and kills someone. But it is also quite clear that the hunting trips and slicing up cadavers are not going to be a good enough substitute for Dexter for long. Deborah, as the foul-mouthed sister of Dexter, is also quite a piece of work. She seems to be willing to lead the life of a normal teenager, but her weird brother and his antics make life difficult for her. Things get worse for Deborah when her father insists on taking Harry along with her to a college party. She is forced to take him to the party. It is the usual deal, with a bunch of drunk and hormonal young adults assembled for a night of fun. A particularly perverted frat boy, Andy, takes a liking to Deborah, and he even tries to force himself on her. Even though Dexter is initially repulsed by everything about the party, he turns out to be the savior for Deborah when he beats the living hell out of Andy. It is the first proper outlet for his violent urges, and he almost goes the distance when he spots a knife. Just when you think he is about to pop his cherry in the serial killing career, Deborah stops him, and they head back home. Later, during one of his hunting trips with his father, Dexter tells him about the incident and how close he was to killing Andy. It is time for some words of wisdom from Harry, who reminds him a murder cannot be undone. But it seems like the constant stressing over his son's future has finally got to him. He suffers a heart attack, and Dexter rushes him to the hospital. How is Dexter led to his first kill? Once Harry is hospitalized, he starts recovering, but slowly, things take a terrible turn. Nothing seems to explain his worsening condition until Dexter finds some clues and realizes the existence of a serial killer right there in the hospital. She is a nurse named Mary, and Dexter finds her taking out obituaries from newspapers. It turns out that she kills many of her patients, and like most delusional serial killers, she believes that she is actually relieving them of their pain. She is injecting Harry with potassium nitrate, and once Dexter's investigation is complete and Harry learns everything from his son, he gives him the green signal to execute his first kill before Mary strikes again. We are suddenly back in familiar waters as Dexter prepares the perfect ambush for Mary in her home. She is strapped to a table, and the sly humor in the scene is hard to miss when Dexter remarks that you can never forget your first time. Mine was with an older woman. Dexter is probably a bit clumsy, considering that it is his first kill, but he eventually gets the job done. Later, Harry is back home from the hospital, much to the delight of his family. There is an emotional scene where Dexter reveals the details of the murder, and Harry seems to be satisfied about it being a clean job. However, the moment Dexter leaves, the dejected father breaks down in tears as the work of his son weighs heavily on his conscience. Finally, Dexter's sharp, observing skills get him an offer for a paid internship with the forensics team of Miami Metro. And although Harry is not particularly delighted about his son joining this job, it is the beginning of something we are so used to watching. Why doesn't Dexter take blood slides from his kill in Original Sin? It is quite a sight when young Dexter accomplishes his first kill, and he even keeps a special memento to take home. His victim, the nurse Mary, has killed several patients and was about to kill Harry as well after he was hospitalized following the heart attack. When Dexter kills her in her own house, he doesn't follow his trademark method of taking samples of his victim's blood and storing it on blood slides. However, this is actually accurate to his narrative because in the original Dexter show, it is revealed that he killed dozens before he started to keep blood slides. It was not until he killed Alex Timmons many years later that he started the practice, and thus, it is only fair that he does no such thing with Mary. He does take a trophy still and takes her gold earrings instead, which might not be the smartest thing to do, especially because he hides them in his room. Things can get messy if someone is on the verge of finding the earrings, and this might be the first lesson for Dexter to cover up his tracks more wisely following the killing. Is Original Sin setting up a comeback for Michael C. Hall? One thing is quite clear after watching the very first episode of Original Sin, the presumed death of Dexter. was not for real and he was merely injured. He survived the gunshot wound. And this means that we can see more of Michael C. Hall in the near future. It is not a coincidence that immediately after the premiere of the first episode, Showtime released a teaser trailer for the new sequel titled Resurrection, which is slated for a summer 2025 release. We just hope that the sole purpose of Original Sin is not to set up the sequel, which would essentially make this more of a filler show. The premise of Original Sin is quite intriguing, and the fans would love to know more about how Dexter turned into the perfect vigilante killer with time. It is also fun to learn new things about their family, such as finding out that Harry had a biological son who passed away years ago. The narrative feels personal, and we love how the show can set up Michael C. Hall's comeback without taking shortcuts. Fingers crossed for that. Will this prequel series be renewed for another season? Nothing has been officially confirmed in this regard, and after only the first episode, it is too early to predict anything on this. That being said, it would be a shame to turn this show into a launchpad for the next big project featuring Michael C. Hall, especially because Patrick Gibson has been more than impressive in this role. If the first episode is any indication, the supporting cast is pretty solid as well, and we can definitely look forward to another season if the show performs alright with the fans. Marvelous verdict. Definitely not a mere cash grab attempt. To praise a show after only one episode wouldn't be fair, but we can assure you that Dexter Original Sin has the potential to become a really good series. It is easy for networks to be lured by the promise of hit franchises and create low-effort cash grab projects. But from the looks of it, Original Sin is definitely not one of them. The casting is absolutely perfect, and we are already appreciating the younger version of Dexter, which is nothing short of an uphill task for any actor. The storyline might have seemed a tad bit slow for the first episode, but we expect things to pick up soon. Maybe Dexter will get caught up in a nasty mess, and emerging from it will turn him into a serial killer with more finesse. We look forward to the next episodes, and we will keep you updated as well with all our discussions and theories. Do let us know in the comments below what you think of this promising new series, and also share your views on what you would like to see from this character going ahead in the show. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.